The sky above the battlefield burned with strange colors. Red fire from explosions mixed with the silver glow of the alien ships. The ground shook again and again like thunder that never ended. Captain Elias Ward stood in the middle of it all, his armor covered in dust, his lungs heavy with smoke. It was the year when humans and the Zayari Empire fought their final and most terrible war. The Zayari were strong, proud, and advanced. Their ships looked like shining blades in the sky, and their soldiers moved with sharp precision. Many thought humans would fall in that war, but humans were stubborn, and Elias was one of them. He had joined the war as a young man carrying no fame, no rank worth speaking of. Yet through long years of fighting he became a captain, not because of his birth but because of his courage and his will to survive. The battle that day was one of the bloodiest. All around him, human forces clashed with the Zayari on a broken planet far from Earth. Its surface was covered in sharp rocks and wide craters. The air smelled of metal, fire, and dust. Ships had fallen from the sky like dying stars, and wreckage lay everywhere. Elias's unit had been scattered. He could no longer see half of his men. He only heard their voices on the comms mixed with static and cries for help. His orders were simple: hold the ground until reinforcements arrived. But the ground itself seemed ready to collapse under the storm of fire. He pushed forward anyway, his weapon steady in his hands. "Keep moving," he shouted to the few soldiers left with him. "We don't stop." They obeyed, not because of his rank, but because his voice carried a strength that gave them hope. The Zayari soldiers advanced quickly, their tall frames glowing under their armor. They fought with elegance, as if battle was an art. But Elias knew one truth: humans fought with something the Zayari could not understand: pure survival. Hours passed like minutes. The clash continued, neither side willing to fall. And then, in the middle of smoke and chaos, Elias saw something strange. Not far from him, through the broken remains of a ship, a figure lay trapped. At first, Elias thought it was another fallen soldier. But then he saw the crown-like crest on the figure's head and the shimmering cloak of rank. His breath froze. It was no ordinary alien. It was someone of importance, someone high among the Zayari. The figure moved weakly, struggling under heavy debris. Sparks from broken wires lit the ground around them. Elias could see the faint glow of wounded armor. He hesitated only a moment. He should have turned away. Logic told him so. A leader of the Zayari meant power, meant the enemy itself. But something deep inside him whispered louder. He ran forward. The smoke made it hard to see, but when he reached the fallen figure, the truth struck him like lightning. It was the Zayari queen herself, Serenia. Her people called her Voice of the Stars. He had seen her face on countless war banners. To humans, she was a symbol of the enemy. Her eyes, silver and bright even through pain, met his. She tried to rise, but the wreckage was too heavy. Elias's weapon was still in his hand. He could have ended her life right there. No one would question it. Ending her would be a victory for humanity. The war might even end faster. But Elias did not raise his weapon. Instead, he dropped it to the side and began pulling away the broken metal that pinned her. The heat burned his gloves, but he did not stop. Piece by piece, he cleared the wreckage until at last the queen could move again. "You," she whispered in a voice that sounded both sharp and soft, like a blade wrapped in silk. "Why, do you help me?" Elias breathed heavily, sweat and dust covering his face. "Because you're alive," he said simply. "And no one deserves to be buried like this. Not even an enemy." Her silver eyes widened. She stared at him, searching his face as if trying to read his soul. For a moment the sounds of battle seemed far away. At last she stood, weak but proud, her cloak torn. She could not walk far, and she leaned on him slightly, though she seemed ashamed to do so. "You will regret this," she said softly, almost like a warning. But there was something else in her tone, something closer to wonder. Elias shook his head. "Maybe. But I'll remember that I chose to be human today." Before either could speak further, a blast shook the ground near them. Elias turned quickly. His men were calling for him again. The battle was not yet over. He looked back at the queen. "Go," he told her. "Find your people. Survive." She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to mark his face in her memory forever. Then she gave a small nod. "I will not forget," she said. "Not today. Not ever." And then she was gone, vanishing into the smoke with the grace of her kind. Elias returned to his unit, never speaking of what he had done. To his men, he was just their captain who fought beside them. To the world, he remained another soldier among millions. But somewhere in the galaxy, an alien queen carried a secret memory, a human who chose mercy over victory. The war ended months later. Both sides, tired and broken, signed a fragile peace. For Elias, it meant the end of endless battles. He left the army and returned to Earth, to a quiet life far from the stars. Yet sometimes, late at night, he would remember silver eyes looking at him through smoke, and words that still echoed in his mind. "I will not forget." He wondered if she truly remembered. The noise of battle was gone. The smoke, the fire, the cries, all had faded into memory. He had returned to Earth, but he did not return as a hero. He returned as a man who wanted peace. The world around him slowly rebuilt itself, and Elias chose a simple life. He moved to a small town near the sea, where the sound of waves replaced the sound of gunfire. He worked with his hands, fixing boats for local fishermen. He kept no medals, no old armor, and no pictures of the war. To the people around him, he was just Elias, the quiet man who spoke little and worked hard. Yet the past did not leave him. At night, when the stars appeared above the water, he often found himself staring at them. Somewhere out there was the Zayari Empire. Somewhere out there lived the alien queen he had once saved. He would shake his head and smile to himself. "She has forgotten," he would whisper. It was long ago, but he was wrong. One morning, the peace of Earth was broken. A giant ship entered orbit. It was not human. Its silver hull reflected the sunlight, and its shape was sharp and elegant like a blade cutting across the sky. People gathered in streets and rooftops, staring upward in fear and wonder. Governments rushed to make contact. The news spread fast. The ship carried an official delegation from the Zayari Empire. Many were nervous. The war may have ended years ago, but memories of destruction were not forgotten. Why had the Zayari come to Earth? Elias did not think much about it. He believed it had nothing to do with him. He fixed nets by the shore and continued his quiet work. That evening, however, a black government vehicle stopped outside his small home. Two officials stepped out. "Captain Elias Ward?" one of them asked. Elias stood by his doorway, frowning. "I don't use that title anymore," he said quietly. The officials exchanged looks. "We have orders. You are requested, no required, to travel to the capital. There is someone who has asked for you by name." Elias's heart sank. "Who?" They hesitated before answering. "The Queen of the Zayari Empire." For a long moment, Elias said nothing. He thought it was a mistake. Perhaps some trick, or perhaps they had confused him with another soldier. But the officials were firm. The Queen had landed on Earth with her delegation, and she had spoken clearly. She wished to meet the human who saved her life long ago. The capital city was alive with tension when Elias arrived. The streets were filled with crowds. Some people cheered, believing this visit meant stronger peace. Others shouted in anger, still seeing the Zayari as enemies. At the center of the city, the government had prepared a great hall for the meeting. Guards stood everywhere, both human and Zayari. The alien soldiers looked taller, their armor shining with symbols of their empire. The humans looked more ordinary, but their eyes were sharp, their weapons ready. When Elias entered, all eyes turned to him. He wore no uniform, only a simple shirt and coat. He felt out of place among the polished officials and proud Zayari leaders. And then he saw her. The Queen of the Zayari stood at the far end of the hall. Serenia. She had changed since that day long ago, yet Elias recognized her instantly. Her silver eyes still shone, but her presence was greater now. She wore a robe of deep blue that shimmered like the night sky, and her crest-like crown gleamed with faint light. When she saw him, her lips curved into a small smile, rare and unexpected for one of her kind. "You came," she said, her voice carrying softly across the hall. Elias bowed slightly, uncertain of the proper way to greet her. "Your Majesty," he said. "I don't know why I am here." "You know," she replied. "Because long ago in the fire of battle you chose not to end me. You chose mercy. I told you then I would not forget. And I have not." The hall grew silent. Both humans and Zayari looked at each other with disbelief. Many had never heard this story. Whispers spread quickly. Was it true? Had the Queen of the Zayari once been saved by a human soldier? The Queen stepped closer. "I have come to ask for your help," she said, her gaze fixed on Elias. Elias frowned. "Help me? I'm no leader. I'm no diplomat. I'm just a man who wanted peace. Her eyes softened. That is exactly why I seek you. Because you are not blinded by power. Because you see more than victory or defeat. My people face a danger greater than any war we fought with you. And I believe only with your presence can hope be found. The humans in the hall shifted uncomfortably. The president of Earth's council cleared his throat. Your Majesty, he said carefully, why would you need one soldier, one man, when you have an empire at your command? Serenia turned her silver gaze on him. Because sometimes one act, one choice changes the course of history. This man made such a choice once. I believe he can again. Elias felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. He had not asked for this. He had not wanted to be remembered. Yet here he was, standing before rulers and crowds, asked to step into the galaxy once more. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to return to his quiet life by the sea. But then he saw the look in her eyes. It was not pride. It was not command, it was trust. And something inside him stirred. That night, Elias sat alone in his room at the Capitol. He looked out the window at the stars, the same stars he used to watch from his seaside home. His mind replayed that day on the battlefield, the smoke, the wreckage, the silver eyes. He whispered to himself, "Why me?" There was no answer, only silence. But in his heart, he already knew he would not walk away. The next morning, he stood once more in the great hall. The Queen waited, her delegation behind her. Human officials looked at him with curiosity and suspicion. Elias drew a deep breath. "If I go," he said slowly, "I go not as a soldier, not as a weapon. I go as a human. If that is what you want, then I will go." The Queen's expression softened into the faintest smile. "That is exactly what I want." And with that, his life changed again. The seaside peace was behind him. Ahead lay the stars, the Zayari Empire, and a danger he had not yet seen. The journey was only beginning. The ship that carried Elias Ward away from Earth was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was not built like human ships, which were practical and heavy. The Zayari vessel moved like a living thing, its silver hull curving with grace, its walls glowing with soft light. Walking through its halls felt like walking inside a dream. Elias often found himself staring out the wide windows, watching Earth grow smaller, until it became a blue dot among countless stars. A quiet part of him wondered if he would ever see his seaside home again. Queen Serenia traveled with him, though not always in sight. Her people filled the ship, soldiers, advisors, and nobles. They all looked at Elias with mixed feelings. Some glared with open dislike. Others studied him in silence, as if trying to understand why their queen valued him. Very few showed respect. To them, he was just a human soldier who had once been an enemy. To Serenia, however, he was something else. One evening, as Elias stood at the observation deck, Serenia joined him. She moved with quiet steps, her robe flowing behind her. The stars reflected in her silver eyes. "You are far from home," she said softly. Elias gave a small smile. "Feels like I've been far from home most of my life." She tilted her head, curious. "You do not regret coming?" He hesitated. "I don't know yet. You haven't told me the real reason why you wanted me here. You said there's a danger. But what is it?" The Queen grew silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on the stars. Then she spoke. "At the edge of known space, far beyond both our territories, there are systems where no one dares travel. For years we believed them empty. But reports came of planets falling silent. Colonies gone, ships vanishing. At first we thought it was rebellion, or pirates. But then we sent fleets, and they never returned." Elias frowned. "And now?" Serenia's voice lowered. "Now we know it is something else. Something that consumes. Entire worlds stripped to dust. Energy drained. Life erased. A force we do not understand." Elias listened quietly. He had seen many battles, but what she described sounded different. Something greater than war. "Why me?" he asked again. "What can I do that your empire cannot?" Her eyes turned toward him, calm but firm. "Because humans see what others overlook. In war, your people adapted, created, and endured in ways the Zayari could not. You, Elias Ward, once made a choice no Zayari would have made. You spared me. That is why I trust you to see what others cannot. Perhaps you will see the path we need." The following days on the ship were not peaceful. Many Zayari generals held meetings with the Queen, and Elias was invited to some of them. He quickly realized he was not welcome. The generals stood tall, their armor polished, their voices sharp. They spoke of building stronger fleets, of crushing the unknown threat with overwhelming force. To them, power was the only answer. When Elias offered his thoughts, most dismissed him. "You are a soldier of Earth," one general said coldly. "What wisdom can you give to an empire that has ruled the stars for centuries?" Elias did not argue. He only listened, but in his mind he noted things they ignored. Patterns in the reports, details in the maps, whispers in the data. Late at night, he sat with the information again and again. He saw a strange design in the attacks. The missing systems formed a curve, a slow path moving inward. It was not random. It was a march. When he presented this idea, some generals laughed. "Coincidence," they said. "Your human eyes see shapes where none exist." But Serenia listened. Her silver eyes narrowed as she studied the map Elias showed. "A path," she whispered. "A steady advance. If that is true, then their next step will be—" She marked a system on the map. Elias nodded. "That's where they'll strike next." The Queen ordered scouts to be sent. Many generals protested, but she silenced them with a single look. The scouts returned weeks later. Their ships were broken, their crews shaken. What they reported chilled everyone. The system Elias predicted was gone. Its planets were nothing but dust and shadows. For the first time, the generals fell silent. Serenia turned to Elias. "You were right." He gave no smile of victory, only a quiet nod. "I've seen war. Patterns are always there if you're willing to see them." From that moment, the Queen allowed Elias to stand at her side more often. Some Zayari still distrusted him, but others began to wonder if perhaps the human did see more than they did. One night, after another long council meeting, Elias walked the halls alone. A younger Zayari officer approached him. Her expression was uncertain. "You saved her once," she said quietly. "On the battlefield long ago. I heard the story. Many of us did not believe it, but I see now. Perhaps it is true. Perhaps that is why she listens to you." Elias studied her. "And do you believe me?" The officer hesitated, then gave a small bow of her head. "I believe she trusts you, and that is enough." She left quickly, leaving Elias in thought. Trust. Such a simple word, yet heavier than any weapon. Weeks later, the ship neared the Zayari homeworld. From space, it was breathtaking, a planet of silver seas and tall crystal towers that shone under its sun. Elias had never seen a world so bright, but the beauty was not free of shadows. Inside the palace, not all welcomed him. Noble families whispered. Rivals of Serenia spoke openly. A human? At her side? Does she forget the war? Does she forget our dead? Plots stirred. Enemies of the Queen spread doubt, warning that her trust in a human would weaken the empire. Elias felt their stares everywhere he walked, yet Serenia remained steady. She called him to private meetings where they studied maps and reports together. She asked his thoughts not as a soldier, but as a man who had lived war and peace. He told her truths others would not. "Your people are strong, but strength alone won't win this. You need unity. You need to see beyond pride." Sometimes she frowned at his words, but she never dismissed them. As weeks turned into months, Elias realized something. This was not only about fighting an unknown enemy. It was about survival of trust between two civilizations. And in quiet moments, when the palace halls were empty, Serenia would look at him with those silver eyes and ask simple questions. "What do humans dream of when they look at the stars?" Elias would answer softly, "We dream of reaching them, not to conquer, but to belong." She would smile faintly, as if those words were more powerful than any fleet, but danger was still growing. Reports arrived daily, systems falling, fleets vanishing. The path Elias had marked was moving closer and closer. The Zayari generals grew restless. Some demanded the Queen remove Elias from her council. Others whispered of replacing her leadership entirely. Elias knew the storm was coming, not just from the stars, but from within the palace walls, and in the silence of his chamber. He wondered if he was strong enough to stand between both. The shadows of the new threat were no longer distant. They were near, and the galaxy was running out of time. The Zayari homeworld sparkled below the ship like a jewel. Its towers glimmered with crystal light. Seas reflected the sun in silvery waves, and forests stretched beyond the eye. Yet despite the beauty, tension filled the air. Every council chamber, every street, even the quiet halls of the palace whispered of worry. The threat Elias had predicted drew closer, and uncertainty gnawed at the hearts of those who had once been confident. Elias Ward walked beside Queen Serenia in the palace courtyard. Her long robe trailed behind her, catching the sunlight, while her silver eyes studied the horizon as if she could see the danger approaching from beyond the stars. "You do not fear it?" Elias asked. Serenia shook her head. "Fear is for those who have no choice. I must lead. I must protect my people." "You are brave," Elias said softly. "But courage alone cannot win this fight." She glanced at him, eyebrow raised. "And what do you suggest, human?" He pointed toward the open courtyard where young soldiers practiced formations. "Look at them. They are strong, yes, but they fight like machines, following orders perfectly. That is power, yes. But power alone will not outthink an enemy that changes faster than you can react. We must combine strength with creativity. Not only ships and soldiers, but strategy and ideas. That is where humans excel." Serenia studied him closely. "Then you shall teach us?" "I will guide," Elias corrected. "Not command. Humans are not the rulers here. But sometimes a different perspective is what keeps people alive." The following weeks were a whirlwind of planning. Elias worked alongside Serenia and the Zayari generals to prepare defenses. He introduced ideas that were unusual to them, using smaller, faster ships in unpredictable patterns, creating decoy signals, and combining human intuition with Zayari technology. Many generals resisted at first. They saw his suggestions as strange, unnecessary, even dangerous. "You are human," one said sharply. "You do not understand Zayari might. You speak of tricks and illusions. That is not how empires win wars." Elias listened without anger. Strength is not always in size. It is in thinking. If you fight blindly, even the strongest fleet can fall. Serenia spoke in his defense. He sees things you do not. Perhaps because he is human. Perhaps because he has walked through fire and lived. Her words silenced the council. Slowly, some generals began to follow Elias's advice, though hesitation still lingered in the air. As the days passed, the bond between Elias and the Queen grew stronger. They met in private chambers to discuss strategy, but they also shared quiet moments walking through gardens and observing the stars. Elias noticed the weight of her crown, the heavy responsibility of leading a proud empire, and he felt a deep respect. Yet he also noticed the loneliness in her eyes, the burden that could not be shared with anyone, not even her advisors. One evening, they stood together by a reflecting pool. The water mirrored the stars above. "You trust me," Serenia said, her voice softer than usual. "Even when others do not," Elias shrugged. "I trust you because you trust others. Leadership is not only about orders, it is about believing in people. You do that, and your empire has hope." She looked down at the pool, her reflection shimmering beside his. "And if I fail?" "You won't," Elias replied quietly. "Not as long as you listen, not as long as you see what others overlook." For a moment, silence wrapped around them, filled only by the soft ripple of water and the distant hum of the palace. Then Serenia spoke again, her tone almost a whisper. "Sometimes I wonder why fate brought you to me." Elias smiled faintly. "Perhaps because mercy matters more than victory." Meanwhile, the threat from beyond the known systems loomed ever closer. Reports arrived daily of entire colonies vanishing, ships disappearing, and planets left as lifeless husks. The galaxy watched silently, hoping that the combined forces of humans and Zayari could stop it. Elias studied every report, every map, every piece of information that arrived. He noticed patterns others ignored. He predicted the enemy's next moves with quiet confidence, earning the reluctant trust of the generals. During one council meeting, he proposed a bold plan. "The enemy advances steadily, taking worlds one after another," he explained. "They are organized but predictable in their method. If we position our forces here and here," he pointed to several sectors, "we can lure them into traps. But it will require cooperation, not only from the Zayari but from humans as well." Some generals frowned. "It is too risky," one said. Serenia's gaze fell on Elias. "Sometimes risk is necessary," she said. "If we do not act, more systems will be lost. We must try what he suggests." To prepare for the coming battle, human and Zayari forces trained together. At first, the exercises were awkward. Humans moved differently, fought differently, and thought differently than the Zayari soldiers. Tensions flared. Mistakes were made, but Elias worked tirelessly to unite them. He reminded them that both species had strengths and weaknesses. We learn from each other, he told them, and only together can we survive. Slowly, understanding grew. Human ingenuity combined with Zayari discipline created strategies neither could have developed alone. Small victories in simulated battles gave them confidence, and the Queen's trust in Elias became a symbol for unity across the empire. However, not all within the palace supported this alliance. Rivals whispered behind closed doors, spreading doubt about the Queen's judgment. A human at her side? Does she not remember the war? Does she forget the strength of our empire? Elias overheard some of the whispers. He did not confront them immediately. Instead, he observed, learning who could be swayed and who would resist. He knew that the enemy from beyond the stars was not the only threat. They also faced danger from within. Yet through it all, the bond between him and Serenia remained unbroken. One evening, after another long day of preparation, they stood in the palace observatory. Stars stretched endlessly before them, and distant planets glimmered in silence. "You have changed our empire," Serenia said quietly. Elias shook his head. "I did not change it, you did. You listened," she smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but I could not have done it without you. I could not have seen what I needed to see without your perspective." The moment was quiet but powerful. A human and an alien queen, separated by worlds and species, had built something stronger than fear. Trust. Weeks later, the first reports of the enemy's approach arrived. Small scouting fleets had encountered strange ships, faster, more organized, and unlike any technology they had seen. Entire systems were falling before them. The council met in urgent session. The generals demanded immediate action. Some wanted to attack with overwhelming force. Others suggested retreat. Serenia turned to Elias. "Your thoughts?" she asked. He pointed to the map. "If we scatter, they will strike faster than we can regroup. If we charge blindly, we lose everything. But if we position ourselves here, use traps as I suggested, and combine human and Zayari tactics, we can fight them on our terms. We can win." Murmurs rose among the generals. Some resisted. Some argued. But the Queen's gaze silenced them all. "You have heard the human," she said firmly. "We act as one or we fall divided." The preparations began. Ships were moved, fleets reorganized, and soldiers trained in combined strategies. Every corner of the empire hummed with purpose. Humans and Zayari worked side by side, learning from each other, and slowly, confidence replaced fear. Elias walked among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and quiet wisdom. He had no titles here, no claim to power, yet he carried something more valuable: the trust of a queen, the respect of her people, and the knowledge that even small decisions could change the course of the galaxy. And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the palace walls, Elias knew one truth: the coming battle would test everything: strength, courage, and the bond between two species. But for the first time in a long time, he felt ready, because sometimes trust and unity were stronger than any weapon. The galaxy had grown quiet, but the calm was only a shadow. Beyond the stars, the unknown enemy moved with deadly precision, leaving systems in ruin and fleets destroyed. Every report brought more fear to the council of the Zayari Empire, and whispers of doubt crept through the halls of the palace. Captain Elias Ward stood beside Queen Serenia in the Grand Strategy Chamber. Maps and holograms floated in the air, displaying the positions of human and Zayari forces. The Queen's eyes, silver and sharp, scanned each report with care. She had led her empire through crises before, but nothing like this. Elias watched her, remembering the battlefield years ago when mercy had changed the fate of both their lives. He thought of her words from that day. "I will not forget." Now he understood just how much weight those words carried. The day of battle arrived with little warning. From orbit, the enemy fleet appeared, ships sleek and dark, moving with perfect coordination. They struck like a storm, consuming everything in their path. The generals were tense. Their eyes darted between the enemy and the Queen, unsure of the next move. Many doubted the human standing at her side, but Elias remained calm. He had studied the enemy's patterns, their paths, and their strategies. "Form the lines as we planned," Elias instructed. "Use the decoys here and the smaller strike teams there. Trust in the plan and trust in each other." The Queen nodded. "We follow your lead, Elias." There was no fear in her voice. Only trust. The battle began with a flash of light. Energy beams streaked across space and explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks. The enemy struck fast, but the combined forces of humans and Zayari responded even faster. Small human ships darted through the gaps, using unpredictable maneuvers that confused the enemy. Zayari fleets formed precise formations, cutting off escape routes. Together, they created traps that had never existed before. Elias directed the movements from the command bridge, his voice steady, guiding both species like a conductor leading a symphony. "Now engage the flanks. Focus fire on their weak points." The enemy faltered, then retreated, but it was not enough. Another wave struck, larger and faster. Amid the chaos, Queen Serenia addressed the troops across the comms. Her voice was calm, filled with authority but also with warmth. "Soldiers of the Zayari and humans of Earth," she said. "Today we fight not as separate peoples but as one. Remember your courage, your skill, and your unity. Fight together and we will survive." Hearing her words, soldiers fought with renewed strength. Humans and Zayari side by side, weaving in perfect coordination, striking the enemy's weak points. Elias noticed a group of small enemy ships attempting to flank them. He acted quickly, redirecting Zayari strike teams and leading a small squad of human ships. Their coordinated attack destroyed the enemy's formation, saving countless lives. One of the generals, who had doubted him before, now nodded in respect. "You see, they cannot predict everything," Elias said quietly, almost to himself. The enemy launched its final assault near the Zayari homeworld. Entire fleets moved like shadows across space, aiming for destruction. Elias and Serenia observed from the command bridge. The Queen turned to him, her expression serious. "This is it," she said. "We must hold our line or everything is lost." Elias placed a hand on the console, steadying himself. "We will hold it. Trust the plan and trust each other." She looked into his eyes, a faint smile appearing. Then her voice softened. "Do you recall me, human?" Elias's breath caught. For a moment, the chaos of battle faded. He remembered the battlefield long ago, smoke rising, wreckage everywhere, and silver eyes meeting his. "I remember," he said, voice low, "and I never forgot." Her smile widened, though the battle raged on outside. "Then let us finish what we began together." The final clash was fierce. The enemy ships moved with speed and precision, but they could not match the combined strength and ingenuity of humans and Zayari. Small human strike teams continued to exploit openings, while Zayari fleets struck with power and precision. Elias guided them tirelessly, calling out orders, adjusting positions, and predicting enemy movements. His understanding of patterns, honed from years of combat, became the key to survival. At the critical moment, he saw a chance. A cluster of enemy ships was isolated, weakly defended. "Now," he shouted. "All units, focus fire on the cluster. Do not hold back." The combined attack hit with perfect timing. The enemy formation shattered, and their retreat began in disarray. The Queen's fleet moved forward, securing the final victory. The enemy withdrew, leaving behind empty space, silent and lifeless. After the battle, silence returned. The stars glowed peacefully once more, as if the galaxy itself was breathing a sigh of relief. Queen Serenia called Elias to her private chamber. She looked at him with the same silver eyes that had haunted his dreams for years. "You were right," she said. "Not only your strategy, but your courage, your vision. It saved us." Elias shook his head. "We saved each other. Humans and Zayari together." She stepped closer. "Your mercy long ago changed the course of history. I did not know then how much one decision could matter. Today you reminded me of it again. Perhaps sometimes a small act is the greatest weapon of all." Elias smiled faintly. "I only did what felt right." Serenia reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. "And that is why I trust humans, Elias Ward. Not because of strength alone, but because of heart, courage, and wisdom. You reminded me what it means to have hope." The galaxy celebrated, though quietly. Systems recovered slowly, rebuilding from the devastation the enemy had left behind. Humans and Zayari shared knowledge, resources, and technology. Together, they prepared for a future that would require cooperation, trust, and respect. Elias returned to Earth eventually, but the story did not end there. He visited Zyari worlds, taught strategies, and guided joint projects. He became a bridge between species, not a ruler, but a symbol of hope. Queen Serenia continued to rule with wisdom, strengthened by her bond with a human she had once believed she would never see again. The galaxy remembered that courage and mercy, even in the smallest acts, could shape the fate of entire civilizations. And sometimes, when the stars were bright, the queen would ask again, softly, "Do you recall me, human?" Elias would smile, remembering the battlefield, the smoke, the silver eyes, and the choice that had changed everything. "I do," he would answer, "and I never will forget." The bond between humans and the Zyari Empire grew stronger with time. They faced challenges, but no force could break the unity forged in trust, courage, and compassion. And though the galaxy was vast and full of unknown dangers, they knew one truth above all. When humans and allies stood together, hope was stronger than fear, and mercy was mightier than any weapon. The stars shone peacefully above, witness to the bravery of a human who had chosen to save a life long ago, and to the alien queen who remembered. Together they had changed the galaxy forever.